papers are broadcaster Pete Price and academic and writer Dr. Mo Lovett. And there they are now, and here we go. If you were here in the last hour, you would have seen some bright pink number going on, and we have a different ensemble. I like that. Pete, I think you've got the same wardrobe up to me, I must say. Let me come to you, Mo, firstly. Page 18 and 19 is a double-page spread in the Mail. Sabotage our democracy and this plot. Tell us more about this plot.
Yeah, it's quite a fascinating story, actually. I think the headline's only half right. So in our democracy, we do support the right to protest. But I'll tell you why I think it is right. So this is protesters' planned Just Stop Oil campaign. They're promoting a 6-week campaign to gridlock Parliament, to clog the courts and to stretch police forces. So essentially what the Mail on Sunday have uncovered is a meeting that took place in Norwich where 1,500 people were recruited to cause disruption during October in what they're calling the Uprising, and the idea is that each of them will get arrested at least twice over the course of 6 weeks and block the courts, block access to Parliament, target politicians in Westminster, stretch the police forces and all the rest of it. Now the reason I think the campaign itself, while supporting their right to protest, I think the reason it will annoy a lot of people is because a lot of these campaigns aren't necessarily geared towards winning the democratic argument. So they frustrate people because they stretch police forces and they make getting to work very difficult. They don't necessarily take the public with them. So in that sense, I think the fact that these protests never seem to want to win over the argument with the public, they rather frustrate the public, is where the headline's right. Now the campaign's due to start next weekend. They're going to block some bridges and entrances to London, but I think it's quite an interesting story if people want to check it out, because what the Mail on Sunday have uncovered is this campaign is kind of being funded by the Climate Emergency Fund, which is an LA-based initiative, and one of the major funders is a woman called Aileen Getty, who is herself an heiress of the Getty oil fortune. So whether that's portrait turned gamekeeper or whatever, but anyway, have a look out for that story. I think it is going to annoy people. I much prefer the democratic way of engaging with the public rather than just frustrating them.
Right, and I'll come to you, Pete, with this front page of the Sunday Express there. The Chancellor, you ain't seen nothing yet. Actually, I'm from South East London, so let me say this properly. You ain't seen nothing yet. You know, gotta do his service, you know.
It's bold, it's aggressive, it's a budget, and he's saying after spending 45 billion, you've seen nothing yet, we've only just got started, this is the real Tories, etc., etc. It actually says nothing. They're surmising what might happen next. We don't know. They've just done this to irritate the Labour, but in fact it hasn't irritated the Labour. It's given the Labour Party now, with their conference in Liverpool, and I look over through that window there, and they're all there gathering as we speak, and it's just... It's a feel-good story if you think it's a good story, because a lot of people are very upset about the amount of money that's being spent and the tax breaks, etc., and the rich getting richer. But somebody has to do something different, and I hope it works. All the pundits are against it. Everything I've heard on television has been against it. They might shock everybody. This Chancellor might be doing something different.
Well, I think that's exactly what Labour will be hoping to see then. I imagine they'll be seeing whether or not there will be something different coming in there, Mo, because looking at the front page, I'm looking at actually, what is this page? Page 3 of the Telegraph there. This is the interview with Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves there, who's actually obviously responded to that mini-budget in Parliament there. But obviously, Labour very much unhappy with the mini-budget. Are they going to be reversing, though, most of these tax cuts, do you think, then, Mo?
Well, they haven't necessarily announced that yet. I mean, as Pete says, that might be something that forms part of the conference in Liverpool today, but he's right in that it's kind of created some shockwaves. And I think this is an interesting interview with Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, in the Telegraph, because she makes the point that the NHS can't just rely on additional funding, that it needs reform. And this is quite a big departure from certainly the previous Corbyn government, who always said that, you know, any talk about reforming the NHS was just a secret plot by the Tories to kind of privatise, buy stealth the NHS. So I'm sort of glad that we've moved away from that, because I think whether you agree with additional funding or not, it's certainly clear, certainly in the wake of the COVID crisis, but probably long before then, that we have an NHS that needs to look at itself and to look at where reform can be made. Rachel Reeves makes the point that it's crazy that patients are waiting longer and longer for their appointments, and actually outcomes are deteriorating. And so she makes the point that public services can't improve without reform, which is, it's good to hear that on the agenda. And I think it's interesting what Pete says about, you know, this bold budget that, you know, that's kind of shaken things, because it has put some clear water between the Conservatives and Labour, and perhaps it will create some kind of shake-up in the way that we look at politics, which have been quite stagnant for a long time. I'm talking about politics themselves, not just the economy. So perhaps we will get some new ideas. I mean, certainly Labour's talking about their own plans for achieving economic growth. They'll be talking about that at the conference, and they'll be reducing business rates on the high street, which they claim will help more businesses than the current Labour plan. So we'll see, but I think it is interesting that we are now kind of moving into a new stage of politics where you can actually differentiate some real clear water between the two main parties.
That's a very good point there, actually, very much so, having that clear blue water there. And let's move over across to the Observer, page 4 here, is page 13 we're looking at here, Pete, and I'll come to you with that story. So Labour then not overturning FPTP, that headline. Just tell us a little bit more about this.
It's interesting because Andy Burnham, I think, is on Sophie's show after this, and I'm interviewing him at 12 o'clock today, which I'm excited about. I like Andy Burnham, and Andy Burnham and others say there should be changes, and Keir Starmer said he's not going to. But Andy's saying, and people are saying, that it's time for people to react across party divisions and change the policy reforms. And it's interesting how much of this is going to come out within the Labour Party conference. I hope they don't waste any time over this. I hope that they get on with all the policies and do some work, and there's no problems within it. But I like Andy Burnham. 22nd of April 2009 it was, when he spoke at LFC about the Hillsborough families. I think he would make a great Prime Minister. I think he'd make a great leader for the Labour Party. Just to throw that in, I really respect this man completely because of his passion. Liverpool lad, brought up in Huyton, finished up in Cambridge, so he's gone right across the spectrum. He knows what he's talking about. I think the reforms need to come about. I like Keir Starmer, but I think Andy's got more charisma.
Oh, Pete, I bet Keir's listening to this, absolutely loving what you're saying. And I'll come to you, Mo. This is the next story here, which is on the Sunday Express. So we don't have much time, but this is the headline there. Street strikes set to wreck Christmas there. Just tell us a little bit more about this. These are obviously the strike action.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be September if we didn't have a Christmas scare story, would it? This is the idea that dockers in Felixstowe, which handles 48% of the UK's imported goods, are set to walk out for 8 days from next Tuesday, joining Liverpool dockers, keeping with a theme there, Pete.
I'm so sorry, Mo. I'm going to have to cut you off there. I cannot believe I let you start and I can't let you finish. Apologies. Mo and Pete, thank you very much indeed for your time. See you after the break.